What's going on, everybody?
Hey, everybody. How are we doing today?
I am Derek.
And I'm Matt. And today we have a very special guest. This is Christian Strait. And he is a special guest because he has been through some stuff we're going to get into today when it comes to school shootings. Mm-hmm. And not only that, but we'll probably bring up at least at one point Charlie Kirk and what's happened to him. It's a week after. Last time when we were recording our episode, we actually found out he had passed away during the episode. So we'll be able to talk about that a little bit today in the aftermath. But that is what we're looking forward to today with an eyewitness to a pretty crazy scene from his past.
Yeah. Let's do let's talk about the Charlie Kirk stuff up front.
You want to do it up front?
Yeah, let's do it up front.
Let's do it up front.
Because I want to focus on him and his story for the
okay.
The
well, I mean, I was going to tie it in, but okay.
Well, we can still tie it in.
Yeah. Well, okay. So Charlie Kirk.
Guy.
So as many of you probably already know, especially the people that watch the show, Charlie Kirk was assassinated. At this point, when you see this, it'll be 2 Wednesdays ago, and it's kind of a crazy scene of. Just they started out for them like any other day where Charlie Kirk was doing his thing, where he was going to come lay his truth bombs, respectfully, of course. And a young man decided to perch himself up and take his shot, and he did. And unfortunately, that was the end of that. It's been a crazy week with both sides of the aisle, responding in their different ways. Some from what we'll call the non-conservative side, because Charlie Kirk was known as a known conservative, did respond in a way of saying this should never have happened. And I think that was an amazing response for many that were willing to put aside their differences with Charlie Kirk and maybe even the messages that he gave and embrace the fact that something like this should never have happened.
Yeah, I think this was more of a religious hit than a political hit. So
yeah, it felt like that.
I mean, I really do believe it. Like I believe that it was 100% that, and it's just one of those things that is tragic, but at the same time, the voice of the conservative side of the aisle is now perked up a little bit. We're seeing more backbone in the conservative side of the aisle, I think, than we have in a while. So.
Yeah. Well, when you have someone who's such a strong voice, who's willing to stand unapologetically for the truth that they believe in, and then they're silenced in the manner that he was, you have people that are willing to step up.
Yeah.
And I think a large part of that is because they don't want to feel like the bullet wins. That the person behind the rifle was able to silence the movement. If you don't stand up at that point and go, no, we're not going to be silenced, then it does feel defeating. And I think it's very honoring to the kind of person that Charlie Kirk was and his work to be able to step into the shoes. I heard, of all people, Ben Shapiro said something I thought was really strong. He said in a manner of words that he was going to pick up the... Or we were going to pick up the bloody microphone right where he dropped it and pick it right back up and get back into the mission. I think that's a really strong imagery to be using for what the movement wants to do. A lot of people feel like there's going to be an awakening of people that are willing to stand up for this kind of truth now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally see that. All the responses from at least the prominent, like, I guess, better known figures has been right alongside that. Whether they agree with each other or not, there's this solidarity in that. And honestly, I was blown away by the crazy amount of people who were celebrating it.
Yeah, that was terrible.
The sickness of those people. Just to be frank, I definitely don't condone that, regardless of what you say your beliefs are. And in fact, for all those who are facing repercussions for it, I think you should. If you're losing your job because you celebrated somebody getting murdered, you should.
Yeah.
So
I will say this though. Okay, we can look at those kinds of things going on. But there was something even greater. This past Sunday,
yes,
this is completely true. Across the nation, actually, I didn't even look at the world figures, but I know across the nation, on average, church attendances were up dramatically in some places. Some people were going to church for the first time because of what happened to Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
Some were going back to church for the first time in years, but church attendances were up around the country in response to this. Now, we can look at all the negative things that are happening.
sure.
We can look at the back and forth. We can look at all the other stuff. But let's not miss what God was doing in this. He still took something that was terrible and something amazing was happening for it. And I think, I didn't know Charlie Kirk personally, but I would think that if he could, maybe he can, see this happening where people are going to church, I think that is a reward in itself.
Sure.
Because if that resulted in 1, 2, who knows, many people being saved, turning their life over to Jesus, man, that's enough.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely think that it was enough just to hear when he opened his eyes, well done.
Oh, man.
I mean, honestly, at that point, I don't think any of the rest of this matters at that point.
Yep.
So.
From what I understand, one of the last things he was talking about prior to the gunshot was he did preach the gospel that day.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean,
I don't know that he did any rallies without doing that. In
I
fact,
mean,
it was littered throughout every
was
single
backed
one of
by
anything
something.
I've seen him.
I'm
speaking. So
I understand that. I'm not saying that anything about that. I'm just saying that it already had happened. So
Right.
one of his last acts in this world was to
Right.
preach the gospel. I think that is pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I will say this, so it did rattle some people. I have some students that are accepting the call to ministry in different ways, and it rattled them a little bit. One, it was very scary. Another one, it was rattling yet kind of reinforcing that we need, when evil shows its face to that kind of capacity, and you see the need the world has, it can solidify your answering the call.
yeah,
And I think that for one of my students, I think that was the case for that person. These kind of things, you're going to have all kinds of different reactions. But I'm just I like focusing on the positive things that I'm seeing here. With more people going to church, that's pretty amazing. But
I understand that, and I agree. We do need to focus on the positive as well. But let's not neglect the righteous anger that comes from this, right?
well, yeah, we it's not okay to,
Right.
especially in a nation where we're supposed to have free speech and be able to do things that Charlie Kirk was doing. For you to not agree with the things he's saying, you have every right to not agree.
Right.
For you to not like what he has to say, you have every right not to like it.
100%.
But it's the same as not liking a television show. Just turn it off.
Right.
If you don't like what he has to say, then don't tune in. Or challenge him in the proper way, in the way he would want to, where that's the kind of forum where he's like, he would invite you to come and say your piece.
Right.
But to just silence him because you don't like that's just, it's not right in any sense at all. And you know what's the worst is that not only did you silence him, but you stole a husband.
Yeah.
And you stole a father from two little children. One, the little girl may or may not remember much of her father outside of the story she's going to be told for the rest of her life. And the son is going to have no memory of him prior to all the stories. So he will be legend, marred by death. But, they don't get the opportunity to be raised by the kind of dad that he was set out to be.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I understand, he was off to a great start. So it's a shame. It really is. And, his children were there. His wife were there during that day. In the fear of it, the kids want to go to their dad. They can't even go to their dad.
Right.
Because it's their dad.
Right.
And it's really hard to think about.
The speech that his wife gave was absolutely incredible. To be able to even speak in that manner at that point is just.
I was surprised how composed she was.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like that I can't imagine that at all. But I'll tell you what. That's a woman to be feared.
Well, I mean, you have someone who was, but it shows you something. I will say this, and when it comes to, if God has a design for different people, like for instance, when it comes to, I believe that my wife was completely made for me. She is my rib. She fits me like no other person on the planet could. That being said, if that was the same formula for Charlie Kirk was a strong voice in this world. It would make sense that he paired someone who complemented him in such a way. And so, yeah, I mean, she pulled it together. She was amazing. And she's got so much in front of her. But you know what? I'll tell you what, something else that I was really, I don't know if I would use the word impressed. I'm not impressed. Something I was respectful of was the shooter's father. The shooter's father turned him in. We know that. And that's got to be, first off, one of the hardest things you can do. I mean, I'm a father of 5. I can't imagine. I don't want to ever think about what that would be. But he knew that what was right needed to come before, anything else.
Yeah.
Not only that, but I also heard that some people were trying to donate money to him, and he donated that back. He just took it all and gave it to Charlie Kirk.
There was a $100,000 reward for the finding or whatever of the shooter, and he rejected that. There was also the fact that he refused to pay for any kind of legal support for his son.
Oh yeah, that too.
And he resigned from the police service that he was. I think he was deputy. He was a sheriff's deputy, I think. I could be wrong. But I just think the guy has shown it's got to be. Well, I tell you what, it honors what Charlie stood for in a lot of ways. It actually not just honors Charlie, it honors what the movement meant, what the truth of the gospel, the truth of what that was trying to be accomplished. That it's not about these other things. It's not about covering things up. It's about letting the truth have its day. And his father did just that, and I can't imagine what he's going through right now. It's got to be so hard. I mean, I feel like he's shown that he knows what he needed to do in that situation. To be able to know what to do and still go through with it, okay, that's so tough, man. I can't imagine what that was like. And honestly, there's a lot of things, and people will probably dismiss it, maybe even just because it's coming out of my mouth. But but I truly think that behind a lot of these shootings and school shootings and everything else is demonic possession. And there's not a lot of people that are willing to readily say that in this country these days. Right. And I truly believe that that's the case.
Stemmed in confusion, I believe.
Say what?
It's all stemmed in severe confusion about what's good and what's bad, and what's happening, what is valuable, what is cheap, to the point where life becomes so cheap to somebody that they think they can take it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When your compassion is non-existent, and the contempt that you can have for another person, that you're not even willing to see them as a person. You're not even,
To lack compassion is to trivialize love, almost. Like gambling trivializes money. Someone so devoid of compassion to do that has brought life to I don't even know the meaning of nothing.
Yeah.
A fraction of what it actually is when it's the most important thing in the world, life and love,
Yeah.
For sure. And, I mean, obviously everybody deals with these kinds of things differently. I was struggling with it. I've been struggling with it all week.
I felt a mourning in my heart. Twice over. First when I found out that he was shot, and then doubled when when I found out he had passed away. You hope that when you hear something like that happens, that they're going to pull through and almost like what it's not exactly the same example at all, but when the thing happened with Donald Trump, when they got him in the ear, it's like, okay, you don't know what happens, and you're just hoping everything's gonna be okay, and then you find out they're okay. You're like, oh, thank goodness. It's a tragic, yes. Does it maybe strengthen the resolve? Possibly, but then you find out, no, this one, no other way to put it, hit its mark, and he's gone, and so that's it's bad enough the attempts, but when it actually happens, and to think about it, I remember thinking, wow, he just became a martyr. That's one of the first things that went through my head.
Yep.
And I went back and actually watched last week's podcast, especially because I was editing it, but I was watching it, and I watched myself look at my phone and see it, and then I could see myself mulling it over, and then he was talking, and I was kind of letting him go, and then I decided to bring it up, and and then I saw myself get silent again because I'm sitting there struggling with it.
It's like sucking the life out of the room.
Yeah, it started to feel,
I felt that as well, man. When just the news of him getting shot, and it's just, my heart's broken. And then, just like you're saying, when it was finalized, it was, I was sad, but then, you actually cheered me up about it because you told me about how he was quoting Corinthians or something like that. And so I'm thinking, he's out there doing what he loves, as far as we understand, that's what he really loved is, influencing the youth. And then in the blink of an eye, he's with the Father, Yeah. Like, I mean.
Yeah, but, I don't know. Like, I struggled with the mourning process for quite a bit, but it was more the anger that's now, like, come from it in this week. And really today I started getting a little bit of closure. I wrote a song. Like, that's how I've been processing my feelings, my emotions lately. And shameless plug, tossed it out there on my Facebook page today. It's the only place you can find it's on the Facebook page. But and on the Breath and Bone, it's my band, artist thing. Breath and Bone page.
Coming to all platforms.
I'm not gonna share it. I'm not gonna share it to the Truth Response page just simply because it's like, personal views versus church views. I don't want to mix all that stuff up.
That's smart. That's very smart.
But I mean, I'll die on that hill. So
yeah, I for me, it's I wasn't doing that. I was just trying to take it in context. I understand the anger. I understand different people's reactions, but I tend to take a step back and just start wondering about how I need to go forward. So one of the reasons that made it easy to just kind of jump right into that this time is because when I found out, I had not only my wife texting me, but one of my students text me at the same time that he had passed away. And I immediately knew, like, I'm going to be dealing with this, but other people are. And I'm a pastor, so it's time. I got work to do now. I got to be able to speak into this, and then to talk to some of my other students, like I said before, later that night and into the next day and such like that. And all right, well, how can we think about it? How can we frame this? Not in a way to try to manipulate it, but just so that they can to help process things. So it's just kind of one of those things where, I take a step back from it and just start looking into, okay, how can God use this through me? How is God using this in the world? How can we encourage people in this time and be empathetic to the anger and the other feelings, but how can we guide forward is really what it is.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
Well, that being said, I definitely say pray for all the families that are connected to this and the other shootings that have happened, and the not just shootings, but the other acts of violence that have come out just recently. Just pray for the families and the people involved. I mean, everybody needs Jesus, and the world would be better off even if people were just practicing what Jesus taught, even if they didn't decide to subscribe, right? But rather just doing the things that he taught, like, man, it'd be a better place. So just be praying for them. And no, it's not necessarily the happiest episode, but
and we're just
but it's
getting
real,
started.
right? Like it's real and it's raw, and that's what we're also about, you know. So buckle up. It's gonna be a podcast, and welcome to the Truth Response.
Father, thank you for today. Thank you for our voice. Thank you for our guest and for everybody that is tuning in to hear what we have to say. And it's a blessing from you to have people that we can minister to through something as simple as a podcast. And Father, we just help you. We want you to help us to just continue to be that solid voice for you and guide our conversation and our hearts and our minds in this, so that we can bring truth in a good way and maybe even bring some healing and perspective to people that otherwise wouldn't have had so. But yeah, be with us today and help us to be the best reflections of you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
All right. So we have, once again, Christian Strait with us, and why don't you tell the audience, well, what school you went to and the event, says we haven't even mentioned that yet.
Right. So I attended Florida State University, and I was unfortunately enrolled and in class when the spring shooting happened. I was in the building next to the student union where the shooting took place, so it was a very serious situation for me.
All right. Okay. So tell me, if you will, so before the accident, what was life like on campus?
Oh, it's just it's same old, I guess, campus is packed, jam-packed, man. Students everywhere. I mean, I was on my way out the door, so it's, all the freshmen coming in, running around, and it's not what I was used to when I first got there. I arrived there during COVID year. Campus was dead empty. And so it was very nice to have a few years of just everyone out and about, A
lot of life.
Yes, absolutely.
Right on. All right, cool. So now the day of the shooting, you had you had kind of set the scene for me. You talked to me about this before. So set the scene for the listeners. What was it like? Normal day. What was your day like?
So normally I would be skipping this class. Is the interesting part. I'd sleep in a lot, or I'd do stupid stuff and end up sleeping in. And that morning I woke up extra early, and I was excited, man. I was like, I'm on top of my A game today. I had just written a grant proposal for one of my classes the night before, so I'm like, let's go. Like, I got my work done. I was ready to go to class, man. I was up way earlier than I normally was at that time.
All right, what class were you going to?
I was heading to this class called the Jewish Tradition.
The Jewish Tradition.
The Jewish Tradition.
All right.
It wasn't in the religion building for some reason. It was in the finance hall.
All right. And around what time was it that everything happened?
So everything happened around basically noon on the dot, right around there. My class started at 11:35.
Okay. So you said something about when they looked back at when the guy would have arrived. You said you were around the same time.
We would have probably been parking in the same parking lot at the same time. That when I and everyone else with 11:35 classes in that area was going to class, and we, I'm sure people saw him that day and thought it was another student just parking, fighting for parking space because there's a million kids there,
Yeah. So yeah, everybody's just kind of going about their normal business, and then take us through it. What was it? I mean, feel free, give detail if you'd like.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We got the time.
We were sitting in class, and I mean, like, it was just fine. You know, we're going through the basics, and a student goes to use the restroom, and he comes right back in, and he says, "Hey, they're saying that we got to lock the doors." And then we're all like so confused. We're like, what's going on? We have no idea what's going on. And then, you know, like a minute or two passes, and then we get the I think it was an announcement, or maybe it was someone told us there's an active shooter on campus. And so there was a moment of hesitation, and then absolute just go mode from every single person in the classroom. We're all the students, as fast as we can, we're grabbing chairs, we're grabbing everything we can grab and just throwing them in front of the doors. And then, you know, we really don't know what to do at this point except sit. So we don't even know what wall to sit at because, I mean, I don't know. If there was a school shooting drill day, I missed it. And apparently my whole class did. We have no idea what we're doing. So we're sitting against the wall closest to the doors. And I remember, you know, I won't get too far ahead, but at first I was sitting towards the middle, and then I made a decision that I need to be sitting next to the door as much as I can in case, God forbid, he was going to try to enter the room.
Okay. Well, you know, it's one thing when they go through, even with the shooter trainings and stuff like that, it's one thing to do it in, you know, in theory, but when the situation's real, I mean, when the variables are real, you know, that can be, for anyone, it can be a completely different experience for you, because you can have all the things you know you need to do in your head, and then when it's actually happening, it can be jarring. You start to question everything.
Absolutely.
Know? And so when did you find out? How long were you locked down before, you know?
This was the worst part of it all was because we were locked down for maybe an hour plus. I don't know. It felt like a century. And you're sitting there in an echo chamber of miscommunication. And it's the whole school is exploding on social media, on anonymous, you know, messaging apps. And a lot of these, I don't know where these kids are. They could be on campus. They could be off. But regardless, they're making the situation 30 times scarier than it has to be because everyone's scared reporting false information, you know. And so it was an eternity of sitting there watching message after message. There's 2 shooters now. There's 3 shooters. One's at the CVS. I heard that this shooter is blank, and there's going to be a shooter. It's a terrorist attack. It's this, it's that, it's the other. And you're just sitting there in the classroom thinking it's still going on. The police, you keep hearing sirens, and, you know, the police still aren't there. That was the worst part, is that it felt like hours and the police still weren't there.
Yeah. Now, so you guys had until somebody told you to lock the doors down, there was you had no idea what
we heard word of mouth was faster than the actual announcement system for the school.
That's wild. Well, I mean, I guess that makes sense. I mean, if you're there and suddenly the idea that something serious is going on, I mean, that'll travel like wildfire.
That's true.
Sure.
That's true.
So, all right. So, so they let you out,
right?
So how did that go about? Like, did the announcement, phone calls? What was it?
So we were just locked in until, I mean, it was literally just the guessing game, and what was so horrible is, you know, we're sitting there and it gets to the point where every time someone's knocking, we're all looking at each other, scared out of our mind, thinking that it could be a shooter pretending to be police, or that there's, you know, people going around pretending to be police knocking all the doors. We have no idea what's going on, and it did not, you know, we were not taken out of there until the police came in, AR, you know, whatever rifles they have drawn, and you literally, I never thought I'd do this in my life, but the police come into a room with their ARs pointed, you know, not quite at you, but they're pointed, and you just have to walk out of the whole building all the way down the stairs with your hands up as high as you can. And I just don't, you know, no one should be in that situation, right?
Yeah. I'm assuming that your hearts were probably beating out of your chest.
Oh, absolutely.
So now, all right, so what was the immediate thing you did when they finally got you out? Or did they group you up? What was the...
They just grouped us up outside, man, and nowhere to go, just wait, stand here and wait, and no information, and no nothing. You're just, police keep showing up, more police, and then police with special uniforms on, and then we don't know if it's reserve or what because we're in the Capitol. Just every sort of police number that you can imagine was there because we're literally 5 minutes from, the downtown offices and whatnot. And, I mean, we still stood outside for, the class was at 11:35. I don't think I got home till 5 or 6 p.m. from just sitting in the classroom for however many hours and then standing outside waiting for them to say, yeah, you can go home.
Yeah. So at what point were you able to communicate with the outside world?
I was communicating with the outside world the entire time.
Who was the first person you called or texted?
I think it was my 2 best friends. I texted them in our group chat, and I just said, dude, like they're shooting up the school. And they thought I was messing around, so they're cracking jokes. And, I thank them for it at this point because if they didn't crack jokes, I don't know how I would have handled everything. But, I mean, they just were there with me through it. I really didn't tell most people. People were texting me because everyone's like, yeah, we checked your location. You're the only one we know on campus right now. Yeah. And so, thankfully, a lot of people were reaching out, helping me keep my cool. But, I mean, regardless of who's texting, I'm still sitting in there thinking, if this guy comes in, if I die trying, it doesn't matter. I got to do something to protect all these people as best I can.
Right. So, at what point did you know what really happened?
That's a great question. I guess, I don't know, maybe a day or 2 after. That's when we finally figure out what happened.
We're able to clear all the clutter. For those who don't know, tell them how many shooters?
There was one shooter.
Yeah.
His mother was a police officer, and he used her service firearm to unfortunately slaughter 2 people who weren't even students. He was in the student union, and they were grown men just trying to do their jobs.
It's hard. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if you got questions,
go for it. You've got this laid out, man.
I had a general thing. So, all right, you got the truth now. So, the question I would ask you next is, what? 2 parts. We'll handle. The first one would be, okay, so how did that change the whole setting? So, before that, it was a normal school year. You said that, it felt great because there was a lot of life. Everybody, it was kind of exciting. That morning even was exciting before it happened. How did life at school change?
Oh, it was, the roller coaster went straight down. FSU is, a party school, whatever. And everything went silent. Every bar that you could think of, every restaurant closed down. The whole school was in mourning, and it was, the Lord is near the brokenhearted, right? I've never seen FSU collaborate in that sort of way in my life. It was, after the chaos was over, people who were there, weren't there, were sending their love out, putting flowers all across campus. Just beautiful, beautiful sights of collaboration and community.
So basically everything it was like a whole different world.
Right. It wasn't the same though. Normally FSU is like, oh, we're all partying, like, we're all going to be rude to each other in short. But it was like, you could feel in the air when you walk through campus, and because I couldn't get my stuff. My car and my book bag were stuck at campus for, I think, a day or 2 because you're not allowed into a crime scene. You know what I mean? And so I had to go back to get it, and that's when I saw campus for the first time after what had happened, and it was just sad faces. Some people laughing and smiling, but volunteers helping students get their belongings back from the classrooms, things like that.
Right. So what was it like the first time getting back on campus?
I mean, it was just sad, man. To walk through, to look over at where the caution tape is, and to think, I walk there every day. Literally every single day, because I prefer to go through the student union than go around, That's, it just, everyone, I guess, at least I'll speak for myself, nothing felt the same, It wasn't the same FSU that I had known. Yeah. It was now, I don't know, there's not a word for it, but something different.
Yeah. Do you hear about people that were possibly looking to change schools after that?
I didn't actually, because thankfully FSU gave students some leeway. You'd work with your professors, figure out what's going on. Do you still have to do work to pass, this, that, and the other? So I don't think I went back to campus after I got my stuff. I didn't want to be there, what I mean? Even to see the decorations, I didn't want to be out there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can imagine that it's got to be weird to step back into that knowing what happened. I mean, as you said yourself going into it, I mean, you could have been parking at you could have passed right by them and not even realized it, because you're in your world, and for some people to think about those same things, they could have passed right by. They might have already been there. It's not all that dissimilar to when you hear things about happen, like 9/11, you hear stories about people that should have been there that weren't there, that were adjacent, that, but going back to those areas can be jarring. Sometimes in situations like that, you'll have people that transfer different schools so they can't be in those environments again. So, if
you transferred, you have my heart. Good job. You're smarter than me.
Yeah. So I mean, I can imagine that we don't think about some of the things that happen when terrible things like this. We think about the loss of life. I mean, that's the most immediate thing we think about, and we think about then the people directly involved, family, friends, people in the classroom, maybe even the surrounding rooms, what it was like. But oftentimes we don't think about that. The impact of something like that goes way beyond that day. It goes way beyond just those groups of people. I mean, as you pointed out, the vibe changes, everything changes. You went from everything's great and wow, look at all the life here, to you didn't even want to go back.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's pretty big. So what kind of if you don't want to talk about some of these things, that's fine, but what were some of the things that lingered with you, maybe kind of like a PTSD kind of thing? What kind of things really kind of kept I hate to use the word triggering, but
right.
What kind of things were you unfortunately walking away with after an event like that for a while? And you might even be working with some of them still.
So, it's just I've never in my life, I'm not a violent person at all. I don't get into fights. I don't like those sort of things. And it was the first time in my life where I fully accepted, in that moment, I said to myself, if he even shows his face here, I'm going to kill this man with my bare hands. No matter what, I will kill this man or die trying. Because I'm sitting in that class, and it's just young, some of the students I knew, they were younger than me, 18, 19, and then a lot of women, and they're all just, everyone's scared and crying, and I shouldn't have put that burden on myself. However, I did, and I can't undo it, and I was ready I'd do anything, because who deserves to be in that situation,
Nobody deserves to be in that situation.
Yeah, and so I was ready and so now I have this, unfortunately, that feeling sits with you when in that moment, you really thought you were going to kill. And so I had a problem in Walmart a few weeks ago where, these kids, they have that, their 6'7" joke, right? And they were trying to play a little prank, and they come in through the front door, and they scream it as loud as they can. And for a second, it popped through my head, I need to get to the front, and I need to stop whoever's shooting this place up right now.
So it's lingering, yeah.
Yeah, and so I had to grab the aisle and just pop a squat and catch my breath and realize where I was, because, that's some of the repercussions of people's actions.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's stuff like that, it can stay with you, deep rooted. Like it was just some kids being obnoxious, but that was able to kind of take you back to that moment. Yeah, that's pretty. So have you, once again, any of this stuff, if you answer what you want. So do you know a lot of people that went into counseling or some kind of mediation or something like that?
It was recommended. I think that all students get counseling. These recommendations are they're recommendations, right? So I don't know how many kids did it. I myself, I'm there trying to figure this stuff out. I'm trying to get there, psychotherapy is definitely a helpful route. It's helped me before, and I'd love to be there to go talk about this stuff, but in the meantime, I've just been sharing the testimony and story of what happened.
Yeah. Now, in that moment, where was your faith throughout this?
I mean, I absolutely in God, that things will be okay, but I have an issue beating myself up, and I have an issue trying to lean on myself. So, I'd pray during that moment, and then then I still think, even if I'm praying to the Lord, I still got to do this. This is in my hands now, because if he's here, it's me, It's me stepping in, unless the Lord sends somebody to go shoot him in the back, right? So it was very hard to keep mindfulness at all, and, even get through prayer, because it's just what is going on.
Yeah. So was it a stumbling block for you in your faith, or is this something that maybe helped grow it?
This definitely helped grow my faith. This is really what made me realize how precious life is, and how much hurt festers, and that you have to get it handled, or you have to lean on the Lord so that you can get a handle on it. Because evidently, and we see it time and time again, people cannot handle their pain. And they hurt other people because they can't handle it. And it's okay that they can't handle it, but it's not okay what they're doing.
Yeah. So, you touched on something that I think is a good point. Tomorrow is never promised for any of us. One of the things about that our enemy loves to do is try to give us the false idea that we got plenty of time no matter what. And for some people, they want to take advantage of that. Well, I'm going to have fun now. I'll get to that later. And unfortunately, later doesn't sometimes come. But, the idea of all right, life is precious, and I need to get on this. I need to solidify my relationship with Jesus. I need to move this forward. I think that's a great, in a tragic thing, it's a great thing to come from that, where you're like, I want to make sure that I'm settled up with my Creator, just in case something were to happen.
Absolutely.
Again, I can only imagine the kind of things that brought to mind. So after that, how did that change some of your ideals? First off, what about just off the top, the gun violence? How has that changed your perspective on guns, gun violence, that kind of thing?
So I actually gave up my guns after that event, because I haven't gone to psychotherapy or anything yet, and I got a real fear that I'm not going to be able to shoot him anymore, because of what happened. And so, I don't need it at this point in my life. And I mean, if I know it's a lot used well for self-defense and used in beneficial ways. However, a tool that is so powerful for good is also so powerful for evil. Mm-hmm. And I saw the evil firsthand, and I don't even want to have anything to do with it anymore.
I can understand that. Yeah, that's I've heard different people go different ways with it. But yeah, so if you were, are you on the point where in your life is it just the idea that you don't want to be put in a situation where you have to rely on something like that?
I'd rather die than take a life at this point in my, it might change in the future when I have, a son or a daughter or something like that. Then I really have people to protect. But at this point, for my day-to-day, walking around, anything like that, and I don't need a gun, because if they're going to kill me over my wallet, they're going to sit with that pain the rest of their life over killing someone for a wallet. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I don't need to go in a duel. It's not 1853, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what about school safety? What are your thoughts, changes on that?
See, I mean, I just don't even know with school safety, because obviously there's so many ways to answer that question when it comes to, is it security or is it teaching? Is it this? Is it that? I mean, there should be more preparation, definitely. You
felt unprepared.
Yeah, I mean, if we're realistically gonna have this many shootings a year,
we hope we don't.
Which we hope we don't. But it's gotten to the point where, okay, then let's stop beating around the bush about it. Go start running those drills. How many tornadoes you have a year and how many school shootings you have? But you're still running the tornado drill. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's better to be prepared than caught unprepared,
Right.
I would think so. When it comes to the reason why these shootings happen, you can try to be as safe as you can. You can try to even go through as much training as you can, but evil doesn't pay attention to the rules. Evil doesn't. You can put rules out and people will abide by them, but evil doesn't necessarily play for that. And so, if someone's going to try to do something, they're going to try to find a way around everything. So it becomes less about some of the other things we can do and more about like heart conditions at that point. So and that's the terrifying thing is that, looking back, we talked about Charlie Kirk and that situation. That was a lot of hatred that had to manifest in order for someone to do that. And it was a lot of hatred that had to manifest for that shooter to come onto your campus. So the problem, it's not even, I'm not trying to get overly political in this, but I don't think it's a weapon problem or a lack of security problem. I don't think it's more training can always be good.
Right.
I'm not saying it, but I think it's a heart problem. I think there's so much that is being poured into both negatively and positively into people that when the people are willing to drink up that negativity and let it manifest in those ways, like there's how can we stop that? I mean, you had a guy like Charlie Kirk who was trying to just speak positively and respectfully, and he got silenced. That the challenge becomes so much greater. To me, I think that this is one of the biggest reasons why it's so important for people to answer the call to ministry and to do work for the Lord. I think it's also so important for any Christian to be willing to stand and love people and stop attacking people for the things that they don't like about them and start showing them more love. And maybe we can start to soften some of these hearts before they get too hard.
I mean, I think the enemy's been running around up, down, sideways for a while to the point where it is, as someone who was just there, it's every facet of everything you do. There's a little part that's just wicked. I mean, you're in college, what do you mean you don't drink? What do you mean you don't go blackout? What do you mean? What do you mean you don't? What do you mean you aren't doing Molly tonight? Are you what? We're going to the rave. Why aren't you doing Molly tonight? And so, and then you get on your phone and what is it? You're following all the hottest celebrities who, some of them are obsessed with themselves or what this, that, and the other, or some of them are greedy. The enemy is just absolutely everywhere in young adults' lives. And I think that's why the call is so strong right now for this generation, because it's just, I think there's been enough, Yeah,
it definitely feels like enough.
Yeah.
For sure. We could use a break.
Right.
We could use some time without anything like this happening. And unfortunately, it feels like lately we've had a bunch of different instances where, there's been different kinds of shootings and or violence that it's like, when will it stop? And unfortunately, we do live in a broken world where, we're living under the curse that we brought on ourselves, and we have to live here until good Lord comes and it can help set everything right again. But that's the tricky situation here, is try to, navigate those waters and find the best ways to go. So for you now, when it comes to other situations, like when it came to like maybe the Charlie Kirk thing, or when you hear about these other school shootings, like what kind of things does that do to you? What are your reactions to stuff like that now?
So, I've sat with this a lot, and, I just feel, grief for whoever passes away. That's a given. But deep, deep empathy for whoever got so lost, so lost, to be wicked, to actually let the demons and let despair and let the world win. Because that's all you're doing. That's why they always kill themselves after, or this, that, or the other, because they're letting the enemy win and overtake them fully. And so I just feel awful, I think, about the situation that they might be in. I think about what might happen to them. Because, I don't know, a lot of people have enough trauma to do something like this. But not everybody does it. And it's the people who don't have strength, the people who are confused, that end up doing it, People who don't have Jesus to fill those holes, those scars. You can have a heart mogged with scars. You still don't have to do it. You really don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I almost wonder what has changed in the last 30 years, 40 years, because it wasn't always like this.
No.
I mean, 60 years ago, we weren't having, school shootings and stuff like that. Like that almost unheard of. Not saying it never happened, but I'm saying like it almost unheard of. We still had guns.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
we still had hard times and people dealing with struggles. Like it wasn't like
my high school actually had a shooting class back in the day.
Yeah.
No, I'm not kidding. People, no. So we lived out in the country in the farms. We were a farm school, and there was actually a shooting class where you could bring your own rifle to school. I'm not kidding. And you could, it was part of the class. But that's the thing, is the mentality was so different that it wasn't thought of as anything like that. You could have a gun in the back of your truck when you rolled in the school parking lot, and nobody would say anything.
Right.
But now, oh my goodness.
I think it's because society don't like Jesus. 30 years ago, every store was closed on a Sunday, or most of them were. Now they don't care. So you were bored 30 years ago. What would you do? You go to church. You didn't have no cell phone, or you didn't have a Instagram or nothing. And that was a small way that Jesus was influencing people's lives.
I think there was a bigger sense of
Community.
Community is the first word that comes to mind. Yeah, selflessness.
Yeah.
I mean, people have been selfish for always, right? Like that's never been not a thing. But now, if you look at, and I'm gonna harp on social media.
I was hoping you'd go there,
right? Like so, and not gonna lie, I'm back on the Facebooks. Rolling reels.
Oh, goodness!
I've got to get off of it, right?
It's
like
so bad.
I was off of all social media for like 2.5 years.
Wow!
So
it felt great.
It was amazing.
Yep.
And I got back on for stupid trying to sell stuff on Marketplace.
And that's how they get you.
I sold the stuff, but I
it's
didn't get
made
back off.
for
right?
that.
That's my favorite part of Facebook is Marketplace.
Yeah. So, but I think social media has the problem with social media is not as much as much as it is a problem, it's not as much the fakeness of people, right? Because that's a problem too. It's somebody's fake life you're looking at, right? But more so, it has elevated our own thought of our own self-importance. Mm-hmm. Our opinion actually matters, we think. And it's like, and the things that we say, now we have a platform that people look at, and all of a sudden, we think that what we have to say and think matters.
Right.
Whereas before, we didn't have that mentality, right? We didn't have the mentality of my voice matters. You would just have a conversation, and if your voice mattered, it mattered, right? Like if you're in your circle,
there's a lot of disconnect too. I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
When, before the technological advances of the past 30 years, people spent most of their time in front of one another. Mm-hmm. Or actually speaking to one another on a phone. They didn't actually, and it's wild to see the changes. And it's funny, as you said, about the scrolling. I had a parent talk to me about their child and said, I took my children's phone away, and then as soon as I gave it back to them, they did the same thing. And I'm like, that's how they think a phone works. Like we forget. No, I'm serious.
I'm right there with you.
When I was growing up,
how old are you?
23.
Yeah, he's still pretty young. But when I was growing up and we had phones attached to the walls, sometimes they had a little circular thing. Like
this means I'm talking on the phone, right?
Not this,
right?
Not this, not this. So it's weird, like to think about how our youth now think phones work. Like they think you can talk on the phone like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we're like,
what do you? Yeah. Oh, because of FaceTime.
FaceTime.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, a child thinks that's what a phone's for.
Dang.
And scrolling and all the things that do. And like, don't get me wrong, as we'll call it an elder millennial, or I like to call it exennial, because I think there's a mix.
No.
Shut up. We're not getting into that conversation again.
Elder millennial, I'll give you.
But
You're not getting X at all.
But it's kind of cool for me because, it's almost like I felt like our generation was like slowly earning all these cool things. Like, we had to wait for it. So it's like we earned it. And so like we don't take it as much for granted. We get sucked into things, all the same, because like scrolling is like poison. Like, and it's just something that you just keep doing. But like
our generation, though, thought that by now we'd have holograms that were walking. I mean, because technology. No, seriously, when we were growing up,
boom,
technology was like this new thing, this new thing, this new thing, this. And when
week.
social media hit, it kind of went.
Well, social media, everything cooled down, and then it was all
cash
about
cow.
getting social media. So actually, there's something to talk
It's
about.
cash cow. That's exactly right.
Yep.
For you, when you went through this experience at your school, what was your relationship with? How was social media for you during that period of time and the immediate after? Was it something that you grabbed onto? Was it something that you wanted to start avoiding? What was that like for you?
So I've always had a bad relationship with social media. That's why I still don't have it back yet. But I'm thinking after this, I'll go look into it.
Don't go, dude.
No, stay away from it.
It's probably better to stay.
If you're not on it now and you don't need it, don't get it.
Yeah, well, that's a great way to put it, actually. There was still outpours of love and whatnot, but then, well, I still went to Bimini last year, and I still have to post those pictures. Straight back to business, after everyone gets their heartfelt post out, it's back to they turn in the machine, selling your information and whatnot.
Well, I mean, so you felt like it was things were hot for a minute and then they just went.
Oh yeah, and I think that's how these things always go. Is some people who really really mean what they meant, or they really really meant what they said, they still post about it, they still mention it, and they still think about it because it's something that sticks with them. And then others.
So you think a lot of people were just jumping on that bandwagon?
Of course, because not all 60,000 students were there, and oh my goodness, it's so frustrating to have been so close to the event and to know that regardless, people are going to try to marginalize my voice and how the situation happened. And it's likely the people who are at home when it happened that are going to try to say, oh, well, what do you know, buddy? You know what I mean? And that's just how the culture is in that sort of institution is, oh, well, I know best because I'm me. Even though I wasn't there, I know best because I'm me. And, you know how it goes.
Yeah.
I want to get back to the heart problem mentality.
Yeah.
Through it, and because it's something that my sister and I, my middle sister, I'm the oldest of four of us kids. I have three younger sisters, but my middle sister, her and I do not see eye to eye on anything, at all. And for a long time, we would not be able to have civil discourse at all about anything except for maybe WWE. But that was it, right? Like that was like our
That's
one
ironic. I love it.
sit down and have a conversation. But today I had tossed out there my song to my family chat, group on Facebook, and she was just like, I don't get it. She's like, it's sad that Charlie was killed and that, a wife lost a husband and daughters lost a dad. And she's like, but I don't understand the concept of, why was he a hero? Why did people think highly of him? She's like, everything that I've ever seen of him has been negative and, all this stuff. And, it opened up a conversation, right? That led to this very thing of, the problem is a heart problem, right? And realistically speaking, what we need to do is we need to figure out how to fix that heart problem, right? And yes, obviously, for those of us who believe in Jesus is the fix for that heart problem. And there's not going to be another fix that actually fixes it. But we need to be able to have that conversation to open up the door, right? To say, hey, all right, we can all agree that as much as we don't like guns, some of us, right? that it's not the gun that was the
Right.
problem, right? The gun definitely amplifies the carnage,
it's a
right?
tool.
Like,
It's just a tool.
I get that.
Yeah.
But the gun was not the problem, right? And so in order to solve the violence, the heart is what we need to fix,
It's
right?
at the core of everything.
It's the core of it all.
I mean, the politicians are going to turn it into what they want to. I mean, they'll blame the guns, they'll blame the security, they'll blame all kinds of things that are going to
Well,
be
and on the conservative side, they'll blame the liberals for their ideologies and all of that too. And realistically speaking, like, everybody's got a heart problem, right? Like, you and I've got heart problems, right? We have situations in which our heart is not where it needs to be as well. I mean, the Bible says the heart is desperately wicked above all else, right?
Right.
So there's a heart problem in the world, and we really need to be sitting down and trying to figure out how can we better put our hearts collectively in a better place. You know, even if people don't want to go the Jesus route, right? I get it. I mean, you want your freedoms, right? I got it. But at the same time, like, if we can agree that there's a heart problem, we need to figure out a way to fix some of it, right? Start like mending some of those heart problems.
Well, you know, what's interesting is that that even has become overly complicated because people put different labels on the heart problems, and they say, well, it's this is the heart problem. And so, for instance, on one side of the aisle, they're saying the heart problem is that we're not just accepting everybody however they wanted to be accepted. Like, that's not necessarily the heart problem. Okay, we can love people. I will say we can love people through the things we don't agree with them on, which is something that was on display in this. It's like, you know, one side of the aisle says you guys aren't accepting us for who we are, and you're not loving us. Okay, well, so if we can do what you're asking to love you, even though we don't agree with the things you're doing, you just displayed that you can't do the same thing. You know, so that's a hard pill to. That's where it becomes like, I think we're missing the mark. I think it's not that we're looking at this the wrong way. I think, you know, people are going to have all different kinds of ideologies and even theologies and all those things, and so that's going to be what it's going to be. And for those who are willing to continue to stand up for, you know, the things that they believe in, you know, unapologetically in some cases, but are willing to stand firm and go, this is what I believe, this is truth, you know, that's fine. But how can we cannot endorse the idea that we have to hate someone because of it.
Sure.
You know, when we're breeding discontent, when we're breeding contempt for other people because they're not thinking the way we do, you know, we look at Jesus from a Christian standpoint, and we see that, you know, he walked into spaces where people were sinners, some of the worst kinds in some cases, and he would go and sit down with them. You know, when it comes to the tax collectors in their time are considered like the worst of the worst because they were Jews who were betraying their own people to make money off of them. How dare you? They were looked at as lower than even the prostitutes, and he went and ate with them. And they're like, how can you even do that? Because they need a doctor.
Yep.
You know, how can we come alongside people that don't even agree with us and see them as a human being? And I think what a big part from at least a Christian standpoint is to recognize, and we talked a little bit about this during our spiritual warfare series that we just went through. We did 12 weeks in spiritual warfare. But is that we got to remember that we're not fighting against them. They're not the problem. It's the thing behind them that's the problem.
Okay.
And so, once again, it's not about attacking people at the forefront. It's about trying to help get into a relationship with them of some kind that's productive enough to see the roots of the problems, because that's the only way we're going to find healing on any side of the market.
Yep.
You know, and if we're not willing to do that, then we're causing more problems, I think.
Exactly. That's hard heart you were talking about.
I think civil discourse is at the heart of what is necessary to make that happen. And my sister and I, we were talking, you know, in the group chat about, well, what is that? I mean, what are there's a few rules that have to be in play in order for you to have civil discourse, right? And I think it's important for people to hear, like, one of the things, like, in order to have a civil conversation, debate with someone with differing views, the first thing you got to do is you have to go in with the mindset that there is one truth and one reality. but many perspectives that have viewed that truth or reality, right? Like there's different perspectives, sure, but there's only one truth and only one reality. So the idea is that like some see that situation from one angle, even though you may see that situation from a different angle, but it doesn't have any effect on what actually happened, right? What took place, but the way you see it, the angle from which you see that taking place may be different, right? Yeah. So we have to understand that that's a truth, right? Like that's
something that every parent should be able to understand, especially any parent that has more than one child, because when an incident happens, there's what this one said happened, there's what this one said happened, and then there's what actually happened.
Right. So that's the first thing, right? You gotta go in with that truth, that mindset is that like there's one truth, one reality, many perspectives. The second thing that you got to be able to do is you got to go into the conversation or debate with the idea and openness that we could be wrong.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Even though, obviously, we don't think we're wrong, right? Like, that's the beliefs that you hold.
Yeah, it's rare that somebody goes into discourse going, I think I'm wrong about this.
Right. But you have to go in with the idea that you could be, right? Like, that it's possible that you aren't correct about some things. I guarantee you're not right about everything. Guarantee you're not right about everything.
Right.
Me, I'm kind of, right. No,
I'm
not right about everything.
Thank you.
I guarantee that I'm not right about everything too. So we have to go in with that mindset that we could be wrong about whatever we're talking about, right? Or we could be missing some links or pieces, right?
Yeah. I get a really easy example about that.
Go for it.
So, for instance, like some people love eating tomatoes, like a lot, and I think tomatoes are gross. And I think I'm right about that. But my wife, who will take a tomato and eat it like an apple, a little salt shaker, says that I'm wrong about that. And neither one of us are willing to give up our position.
Yeah.
Have to be willing to go, well, could you just try this tomato, is what she'll say. And I'll be like, and I have to be willing.
Still a tomato.
It's still a tomato.
Yep.
So the third rule, though, is the most important one, right? And the third rule is that you have to go in assuming that the other person is adhering to the rules before that.
Yeah.
Rules 1 and 2. So that whenever you are reacting, right, to whatever they're saying, you have that in your mind, right? So like I know that if you're coming into a civil conversation that we both are of the mindset that there's one truth, even though we have different perspectives, right? And that I could be wrong about whatever it is we're talking about. So if I know that the other person is coming in with that, and I have the mindset and I ascribe to the idea that they are adhering to those things, my reaction to them is going to be way more tempered than not.
Yeah.
Because you're like, okay, this person is already coming with the idea that they could be wrong and that we're looking at it from two different perspectives trying to find the truth, right? Like, and that changes the perspective of a debate or a conversation with somebody that has differing views from you. Whereas normally we just go at each other and yell and scream and, whatever.
Right.
It's not civil.
Yeah.
But it was interesting that is, all of that came of today's conversation with my sister, that and leads to, we both agree that there's a heart problem. We don't agree on anything else with it, but there's a heart problem.
Yeah.
So, and we both agree that there needs to be more civil discourse, and we don't understand why that's all gone. Like, it was interesting because she said that she has been getting verbally attacked, I guess. Because people know her viewpoints, and she lives in a very conservative town, and she's not at all. Although she's not uber crazy liberal either. But people have come in and been like, your side did, and she's like, I don't understand why everybody's attacking me.
She's like,
I'm like, look, it doesn't make it right, but now you're starting to feel what most of us have felt for a while, like
since 2016.
And so it's like one of those things. It's like, I am so sorry that it's happened to you, but now you know kind of where we're at,
right.
and it's got to stop. And we both agree that that's got to stop.
Well, I would say I like your list of things that need to happen. I would say I'll give you one alternative way of thinking on one of you. You said so you need to go in with the thought process that you might be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'll give you one alternative, and I think you could probably agree with this.
Okay.
So if that's something you're having a hard time comes to terms with, let's say it's a subject that you've studied a lot and you're pretty strong in your beliefs, and so you're going in the situation going, I don't think there's anything that the person could say that could change my mind. Okay, then here's your alternative. Don't go in to prove someone wrong. Go in to understand. Because if you're willing, some of the best conversations I've had with people that did not believe the things I believed about any subject, rather, is when I was like, I put aside the notion that I needed to be right and just was like, well, explain to me what you think. And when they were willing to at least hear me out too, and we were able to go back and forth, it wasn't necessarily about trying to prove it to each other. It was like, okay, well then, what does, if that's what you believe, then what about this? And then, well, what about this? And then being able to ask genuine questions to really see from the other person's perspective. Be willing to put yourself aside for a second and genuinely get to know the other person in a way that you weren't going to. So if you're going in thinking, and then it's hard for you to go, well, but I'm right. I know I'm right about this. Okay. Then go in to understand the other person.
I would say that is hopeful.
Yeah,
that's way more hopeful
because
like here's the reality of it. If you, I really like what Christian apologist Frank Turk says about this, and that is you have 4 different types of people that you talk to, right? Mm-hmm. One, on any subject. So say whatever the subject is. One is completely to the right, whatever that viewpoint is. Not politically, but to this side, right? And there is nothing that you can ever do to change their mind, right? Mm. And then the other side is also true, right? Equal and oppositely true, right? So left, all the way left, there's nothing you can do to. But then there's also 2 people that are in the middle, right? And they lean the directions, but they're open to being wrong about whatever it is they talk about. And these people aren't worth arguing with. They aren't worth debating. They're barely worth having that conversation with, because they're not open to the truth, whatever that might be. They could hold the truth. I'm not saying that they don't, but if you're not open to the possibility of being wrong, it's almost better to just not have the conversation. Because as much as that's a hopeful thing, and some people can do that. I love that some people can go into it and just listen to understand the other person. Most human beings cannot do that.
We need to bring back something that we all are familiar with, the old Socratic shakedown. Because you guys know the movie Inception, right? Yeah. The whole point is you got to get in their dream, to make them think of something. That is all that asking questions is, because you're getting those gears turning for them. If you ask the right line of questioning, you can at least, like going with what you were saying, they can finally at least understand what you're thinking. And
well, I mean, it's for me, it's like, because there are times where I do go in going, I'd like to know if I'm wrong about this. That's genuinely sometimes what I do. But there are times where I genuinely have spent a lot of time, and there are things that I have strong convictions about, both in and out of the Bible. I'll put it that way. Okay? And that being said, when people talk to me about them, I try to then just want to understand. I'll ask questions. I love to have conversations. I really do.
Right.
But at that point, I'm like, okay, well then, please explain to me where your line of thinking is. And I'll ask questions because I want to fully understand where you're at.
Right.
And the thing is that you have to hold back
your
the temptation.
Mechanisms.
No, you got to hold back the temptation to look for the opening to attack. That's what it is, because that's what people start out in the right way with that method, where they'll be, all right, no, tell me, and then what they're doing is they're sitting there waiting for the hole. Waiting for the right thing to go, but it's this. And don't get me wrong, as an apologist, if you're trying to evangelize, that's a useful tool. But if you're trying to have a conversation, then that is not a useful tool, because then you're just going to end up, you could easily have someone going, wait a minute, I thought we were just having a conversation here.
Right, and let's not, okay, so I'm not saying don't listen to get to understand the other person in the scenario that I set up. I'm saying that without the possibility of you being wrong, you're going to have a nightmare of a time listening for that other person. There's no real point, right? Like, there's no point at that point because you're not seeking truth, right? You if anything, your motivation is to understand that person so that you can navigate that person better, right? Which I guess is good, but that leads to the very open probability of manipulating that person, and not always in the best way.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that we shouldn't even manipulate people to believing in Jesus, right? It shouldn't be a manipulation process, right? Like the whole, you're going to hell if you don't believe is a terrible way to witness to somebody. Like, not because it doesn't work, it's because that's not what Jesus wants.
That's the best you could think of, scaring people. That's the best I mean,
it's a truth and it's a reality,
right?
But that's not why we have a relationship with Jesus, right? Like, that's not the point of our relationship. So, like, manipulation tactics are not great whenever it comes to the big key things, right? And so that would be my worry. If you're not in a place where you are open to the possibility of being wrong, even though you know that you probably aren't, right? Because that's okay. You can know that you're probably not, but if there's proof enough that I'm wrong, I'll accept that. Like it opens you up to where you don't have...
You mean like our discourse on David and Goliath?
You don't have Yeah, if you can show me, I'll believe it.
I have shown you.
I don't even want to open this can of worms.
Sorry, he and I have to get into it about that.
But it because if you're going into it just to listen and get to understand the other person, as great as that is, there's some reason and motivation behind it, right? And it could be the purest of intentions, but pure intentions pave the road to hell. So, that's just one of those things. So I agree that has to be a mindset going into that civil conversation too. So that's a great added.
Oh yeah, added. It's something that
and
perhaps it takes discipline. That you need to work up to where you can get yourself in a place. A lot of it's setting yourself aside and being willing to listen.
I think that if you have something that you're unwilling to even entertain the possibility of being wrong on, right? Yeah, I'm not saying you can't believe that you're right, and you could be, but if you're not willing to even entertain the possibility of being wrong about something, I would say pray on it, because that could be a sense of pride and arrogance.
Yeah.
And it could be even just a root of it. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean that's what flourishes in shows in your life, but I'm saying, like, pray on that, because that could be a stronghold that the enemy's got his foot in the door of, and I would say be very careful of that. So I don't know, but it is bringing good conversation, right? All these terrible things God is starting to use for some amazing things. And I know that you were hinting at that earlier, and I was like, no, we got to talk about the negative stuff too. You're one of those, I want to talk about the happy stuff, more often than the negative, but there's a reality of the negative that we have to talk about, and we have to get in there. There's going to be times where we're going to have to get political, and it's just going to have to be a part of our discourse. There's going to be times where we're going to have to talk about the reality of how people treat other people that claim to be Christians, or whatnot. So I think that we got to talk about that. But I think ending it or coming to some sort of close, landing the plane somewhere around here, needs to end on a positive note too. And I think that's where I want to shift a little bit to what are the great things that are coming from such a horrid setting of events, your event and Charlie Kirk and the school shootings, and what are the good things, even if they're not happy things? What are the good things that are coming from these things?
Well, I'll tell you what. When you think about certain times when tragedies happen, I can imagine that the people that were surrounding the events of what happened with Charlie Kirk, and I would assume, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that it happened to some degree on your campus. but I would think they're not that different than when 9/11 happened. We talked about 9/11 on the show before, and how for a while afterwards, there was such a dramatic shift to where people were nicer to one another. They were making more room for one another. They were more patient with one another. They supported one another a little bit more. They saw more of the humanity around them in a new way, in a fresh way. Now, eventually, they get back to. I mean, it was New York, so eventually somebody's going to just tell everybody, you know. But but across the country, I felt like there was a period of time, you know, where people were just, you know, a little nicer, a little more, and even more respectful to our law enforcement and our fire officers who were out there, and there was more attention to things like that. So I think, you know, did you experience that on your college campus where people were just took a little more time?
Yeah, of course. I think you know, many of the students affected are generally, most of them, way nicer to everybody, because it's you know, like everything we talk about, situations like these that just forcefully, unfortunately, strip some of those barriers off our hearts, because we all sit there and think, wow, death is real. You know, death is real, and that's what makes us realize our humanity.
I mean, considering our own mortality is definitely a positive thing to think through, right?
Right.
It's one of those things that you start thinking, okay, am I living the life that I would want to live if I had to die tomorrow?
Exactly.
You know, and so
when I turned 20, I had this like existential crisis when I turned 20, when I was like no longer a teenager. It was so weird. Like, you can laugh at me if you want to, but like I went from like, oh, I'm a teenager to, oh my gosh, I'm just an adult, I'm gonna die. And like, it was so weird. And my mom of all people, she watches this, so hi Mom. My mom of all people was like, hey, you know, so calm down. Let me ask you a question. If you were to die tomorrow, would you be happy with how you've lived your life? And I hadn't really considered that question before she asked me, and I thought, no, no, I'm not. In so many different ways, I'm not. And, you know, I'll tell you this. When you look at questions like that and you take them to heart, you can start to dramatically change the way you live your life, the way you view people. You know, there was a scare early on in my wife and I's relationship, or for a period of time, there was a reality that I could lose her at any moment. There was, I don't know if did I share that?
Yeah, you've talked about it.
There was an unruptured aneurysm in her brain behind her eye, and later on, it was a miracle that I could get into at another time. But here's the thing: it made that relationship. It changed a lot of things really fast, and it was early on in a relationship that you start to not get in stupid fights. You start to not hold on to things and just realize that things are more precious. And I looked at her the way I think I should have looked at her. You know, not that I wasn't. I mean, there was always something about my wife that I loved about her. But, like, you know, there is something that was super special about realizing, oh man, life is so precious. Any moment she could be gone from my life. I need to cherish her while I have her. And I think we get so jaded to life that it takes something to sometimes wake us up and give us the reality that, you know, this really is precious and people really are precious. And so, yeah, getting back to what I was saying, it's like, you know, that's something I do see that comes positive out of that, where people are willing to love on each other a little bit more and be open to one another a little bit more. And like I said earlier in the show, to see more people going to church. You know?
Yeah, I was going to say, there's a spiritual awakening.
That's huge.
Eyes of people and being able to see the things of the spiritual realm are
absolutely
coming alive. And so it's been wild. And if you're looking for where God is moving in all of these situations, look at who he's bringing to your churches, right? Like, that's where you need to be moving to, is speaking into their lives, loving on them, you know, helping them process things that they've gone through, but also just being there to go through life with them, you know. I mean, that's one of the biggest and most fun things that we can be called to. One of the hardest things we can be called to is just going through life with one another. And so that's a big thing, like, that you should be looking at in your churches, is like, with all of the influx of people who are stepping into those churches, are you going to meet them where they are? Because if you just let it slip, it'll be known that, you know, they think that whatever it is that you've got going on is fake at that point.
Yep.
You know, and they're looking to it as something that's real because of the way that those who are in those situations have reacted to it. So specifically with the Charlie Kirk situation, like how his family, how his friends have reacted to it, and they didn't take to the streets burning things. They were civil and had some love and compassion towards people, which there wasn't a lot of slander and hate, you know.
It was really nice.
So
I tell you that there were some organizations that even really surprised me.
Yeah.
Not that I thought that they were negative organizations necessarily, but like, for instance, now I come from Baltimore, so I got to preface this because I'm an Orioles fan, okay? And because I'm an Orioles fan, Yankees are the enemy. But that night, the night it happened, that the Charlie Kirk assassination happened, the Yankees were playing, and they lit up Yankee Stadium with a memorial to, and a moment of silence to Charlie Kirk. What a stand-up thing to do.
Yeah.
And even as a, you know, guy that hasn't been a fan of the Yankees in my life, like, it's like, man, you know what? Respect. Thank you for taking the moment. You know, and some people view New York as a whole, well, especially that surrounding area, as a very, you know, other side from Charlie Kirk. But what a way to stand up and start kind of like start the movement of like, no, we're gonna acknowledge this. This is wrong. And it was beautiful, and it was simple, and it was just like, thank you for being willing to do that. And I love it so much. And there's been more organizations. And you're right, there have been some who have been let go of their jobs because they were speaking opposite things.
Well, and that also can, I know it's not a positive thing for those people, but it cleaned up a nasty workplace that you didn't know was nasty until those people decided to speak their minds. But also, it's causing people to have a little bit more of a backbone in what is right and wrong in society. Yeah. And that the whole thing is
it took
you're not going to lose your
away
job over your, you know, thinking that, you know, this political belief or that political belief. But praising somebody who's been murdered, praising the fact that they've been murdered, that's morally wrong on all the sides, right? Like, nobody's disagreeing with that part of it. That on both of the normal political sides, right?
I think the idea that we've shooken complacency a little bit, you know, and that can be a positive thing in a lot of ways, you know.
Yeah, complacency kills me.
I think these events like this is just like the shedding, like these horrible events becomes the shedding of secularization, where those two people standing in the middle, they can be even further towards the extremes and still find that common ground.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I agree.
That is an amazing moment where, people can kind of put their stuff aside, you know, and that, unfortunately, that is, why does it take tragedy to do it? Is the part that always gets me. I mean, I remember thinking, when I grew up, we had funerals a lot. I had a bunch of older relatives, and I felt like we had funerals all the time. And there was relatives I only saw at funerals. And I thought to myself, why is it always a funeral?
Right.
Why does it take one of these? Why does it take something negative for us to have these positives? Like, I wish we could stay on top of it. But you're right. It's the complacency. It's the complacency that starts to, people kind of jade back and go, well, you know, it's not really me. It kind of reawakens you to, like, man, this could be you.
Yeah, exactly.
And this, you know, this was, you know, people wanted to frame Charlie Kirk's thing in all kinds of different ways. You know, let them try to frame it however they want, but we know the truth of it. He was outspoken. He was very faithful. He wanted that to be the forefront of everything he did. People take the gospel as an offensive thing, but it was meant to be, because we're not supposed to be okay with the other things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And one's going to attack the other. But the kind of hate that had to try to stop it is incredible. We can't accept that kind of hate. We can't continue to have a regular normalization of violence in the way we speak to one another and how we react with one another. We can't have that and then think that we're going to progress.
I think we just found our common ground here, right?
So, all right. So, in closing, is there anything that you want to say, like final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, really, it's just that, you know, anyone who's suffered from things like this, my heart, it goes out to you. And you really aren't alone. I'm telling you, unfortunately, it's an unfortunate truth, but we're everywhere. You know, people who've been in situations like me, and just, you got this. That's what I'll say. You got this. And always trust the Lord.
Cool.
All right.
You got anything?
Really, I just want to thank you, Christian, for coming on and giving your perspective. This is one of those things that, you know, is jarring to hear sometimes, but it's good to know. It's good to know how you were able to get through it, and that you're willing to come up and talk about it. And it helps give perspective. It helps, make it more real for some. And so I hope that everyone listening and watching this podcast, I hope that this, helped you in some way. Maybe it was perspective once again, or maybe it was something that you were working with within yourself.
Yeah, and don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, share.
Comment.
Yeah, YouTubes. We need it on the YouTubes.
Hey, we're growing, man. We're growing. We've got.
Christian has promised to promote us.
I did. I'm relying on you. If you're watching this right now, you gotta comment. Come on, man.
Yeah. So
like, subscribe.
So we're getting there. We're getting there. Our listens in the first 24 hours are not in a great place as far as like Spotify and all that. So be sending out the Spotifys to people too, like share it in all the different platforms. But we appreciate you guys. Thank you for chilling with us for this 224th episode or whatever.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And so thank you for who you guys are and what you guys do. And we just hope and pray that you guys are gaining something from it. So,
amen to that.
So,
amen.
If you are, throw a comment in.
Yeah.
All right. So thanks. Remember to pray for those who are struggling, and God bless.
Hey, thanks for joining us. Make sure to subscribe and give us a like on iTunes and Spotify so that you will never miss a show. And while you're at it, check out our Facebook and Instagram pages, and make sure you tell your friends about this show. You don't want them to miss out on the truth, because we are all about the truth here. Thanks for joining us this week, and God bless.